I had a hard time accepting that I was trans. I first started thinking about what it meant to be trans in 2022. I came across these video essays about transphobia by this YouTuber named Sean. I thought I was cis at the time and barely knew anything about being trans. I gained a lot of empathy for trans people, but also it was horrifying to see how much hate was directed towards them. In his video, J.K. Rowling's New Friends, Sean talked about J.K. Rowling welcoming back someone that was suspended on Twitter after saying AIDS was preferable to the work of trans affirming charities. And when people in the replies said why he was suspended, she blocked them. To see that kind of hatred just going ignored by a figure like J.K. Rowling, whose books I read growing up and loved, it really was awful for me to see that. And I just remember telling myself clearly, if I were trans, I would never transition. It'd be too scary, too hard. Trans people were brave. They had so much courage. I'm not brave like them. I had terrible social anxiety. All I wanted was to be normal and unbothered. If I were trans, I'd just keep being a man because life would be easier, right? And at the time, this was just a hypothetical situation. It took me a really long time to both realize and accept that I was trans. I had a lot of signs I ignored. Like in my senior year of high school, someone in my computer science class just out of nowhere said, I'd rather be a woman, but I would be an ugly woman if I was trans, so I would never be trans. And I heard this and was like, yeah, me too. I would rather be a woman. But being trans, which at the time I didn't know anything about and just thought was like a choice you would make, and I was like, I would never choose that. I already thought I was disgusting. I had such low self-esteem. And just imagining being trans, trying to be a woman, I just couldn't even imagine that possibility. I just had no positive picture of what being trans was and accepted that wanting to be a woman was a normal thought for a high school boy to have. I dismissed this moment and kept living my life as a guy. 2 years after high school, I still had no idea I was trans. I started seeing a therapist for my social anxiety and depression. When I met her for the first time and told her I was really depressed, I told her I thought the main reason for this was because I had a lot of trouble making friends and I had really bad social anxiety. My therapist told me about this book titled How to Be Yourself, Quiet Your Inner Critic, and Rise Above Social Anxiety by Ellen Hendrickson. I got this book and started reading it, and in the book, Hendrickson talks about your inner critic. Your inner critic criticizes everything you do. It's the voice that catastrophizes the smallest things and imagines that every social interaction will go so badly that you're better off just hiding away and avoiding social situations. Henderson talks about how you need to practice being a defense attorney and cross-examine your inner critic when its voice pops up in your head. So when your inner critic is panicking and is anxious, ask, what's the worst that can happen? If you're anxious about social situations and worry that it'll be awkward and people will judge you and think you're weird, ask, how bad would that be? So I started practicing having my defense attorney cross-examine my inner critic when that voice popped in my head, the voice that told me I was worthless for even trying to make friends, that I was a loser and that I would never be anything but a loser. Except, in the book, Hendrickson offered that your defense attorney could be anyone or anything. I didn't really have a specific person in mind, but I decided to make my defense attorney a woman. She was essentially me, but a woman, and I was like, yeah, that's awesome. A woman in my head. That feels so right. And this defense attorney of mine would help me overcome my social anxiety. And again, I did not think I was trans at this point. I just had so many signals like this, like that moment in high school that I just ignored. But looking back on it, my brain was trying to signal to me that I was trans, but I did not know how to interpret those signals. I didn't know any trans people. I didn't know what being trans was even. I was never taught. So I just kept living my life as a guy, oblivious to the fact that I was trans. Like, it just felt so nice for a woman to be on my side, and that my defense attorney was essentially me, but more kind and gentle towards myself. I really liked this. It felt right. So when I had negative self-talk, I would pitch up my voice inside my head to be more feminine and have my defense attorney tell myself that things would be okay, that it may be uncomfortable, but I wasn't worthless for trying to do something like making friends. And look, my social anxiety was so bad at this time, and I think my horrible social anxiety was why the idea of being trans was so hard to process. Like, I already had so much social anxiety. Imagine adding being trans on top of that. That would be awful. So I didn't even think of the possibility that I could be trans. After seeing my therapist again, she suggested that I start journaling about my social anxiety. I named my daily journal, I Need Help So Badly. I'm gonna read a little bit of what I wrote in that journal entry.
I feel anxious about saying words. I feel anxious about smiling. I feel anxious about being alive. I feel like I don't know myself sometimes. I act very differently around different groups and express myself in different ways. I feel like I'm putting on some sort of facade or deception since I can never just be me, because I don't even know who that is.
Hendrickson named her book How to Be Yourself, and yet I didn't know how to do that because I didn't know who that was. I wanted to put myself out there and try to make friends. Before my college started back up, it was the summer of 2021, and I found an ultimate frisbee pickup group on meetup.com and decided to go to it. I journaled about this experience so I could share it with my therapist, and I will read my journal entry now.
It was 6 o'clock and I showed up at a park, and I saw some people throwing a frisbee, but instead of just walking up and asking if they were the pickup group, I just sat in my Toyota Corolla sweating and staring at them, stewing in my anxiety. I sat in my car for about 15 minutes and kept watching this group, being too afraid to get out and approach them. I didn't know anyone there. It was so scary. What if they thought I was weird for showing up all alone? I saw that they were starting to play a game, and I told myself, I'm so stupid for waiting this long. I thought it'd be weird for me to go now in the middle of it, and that maybe I should just drive home. Then my defense attorney's voice appeared in my head, and she said,
You're not an idiot for trying.
and so I took that to heart. I got out of my car and I approached some people on the sideline. I asked them if I could play, and this guy named Kenny said sure. After I was done playing, Kenny approached me and asked if I was in school. I said yes. He asked if I was working at all, and I told him that I had been working as a lab assistant, but only for about 8 hours a week. And he said, that's still good for your resume. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right. And he asked where I went to high school, and he asked how it was, and I was like, yeah, it was nice growing up there. People were nice. I just kept it vague. I couldn't really be truthful that I had an awful experience growing up. And then Kenny said to me, it seems like you turned out alright, so that's good. And I said, yeah. And then I said my goodbyes and walked back to my car, and I thought to myself, I did not turn out alright. It took me 15 minutes to work up the courage to approach the group. I thought about killing myself that morning 2 minutes after I woke up. I did not turn out alright. However, it was good that I appeared and acted normal enough that someone told me I turned out alright.
Shortly after this journal entry, I wrote another entry about how I felt my life was going.
I don't know what to do. I know I have to make changes to be happy. I want to make changes to be happy. I believe it's possible for me to make changes and be happy. I don't know what these changes are. I wish I did. I truly feel awful. I really wish I didn't exist. It hurts to be alive, It seems like much of the time I wish I wasn't alive. I wish I had a magic pill that would kill me instantly. I would crush that pill in my mouth and swallow its dust down my throat. If it would kill me, I would do it. I hate that I'm alive. Fuck, I wish I could die. I really want to die. Please kill me. Please end my life. What's going on with me? Where did it all go wrong? I'm 20 years old and it is 11:35 and I've written over 1,000 words in a Word document talking about how much I want to die. Did I ever see myself being here? Did I ever think it would get this bad? Like when I was 16 and feeling hopeless about my life, did I picture myself as a 20-year-old typing this out? Like I remember writing stuff in the notes app on my phone, but that was always driven by impulse. This right here feels quite different. I feel so empty and yet full of terror. I don't want to be alive. Please end my life. I wish these words could do something. I wish my keystrokes could create change. Yet I sit here at my computer as the same depressed person who just wishes it could all end. I don't know what to do to change it. I wish I could. I hate my life. I want it to end. My thoughts are erratic as ever, and I no longer wish to exist. This is depressing. I hate it. Okay, let's end with an original thought. I've been alive for 7,498 days. Today is just like the others, except I decided to write down my thoughts in a Word document. I know when I exit out of this Word document, nothing will have changed. I don't think this will create any sort of long-form change. Hell, I don't even think it will create any sort of short-term change either. Goodbye.
Looking back on this message almost 5 years later, I feel really bad for my past self. I wish I could give that person a hug. I desperately wanted a change, but I had no idea what that was. At the time, I was not thinking about being trans. I just felt so deeply wrong as a person. Not long after this, I'm washing dishes at the lab when my coworker says that when he worked at Papa John's, he would smoke weed with this guy at work all the time. And then he said, and it turns out he was a she. Isn't that crazy? And I was like, damn, that's wild. What? Now in my head, I wish I had just said something like, oh, she's trans. As he told me that, I just projected this version of someone who would be most agreeable and was kind of just like another guy. And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. And then I just went back to washing dishes. And I had the sense that the person, the woman he was talking about, was like me. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt this weird energy. The following year, I moved out of my mom's house and got a studio apartment and was living alone for the first time. One day, when I was on my way to doing my laundry, I reflected on how my life was going, and I thought, it seemed like things were getting better. I was working as a lab assistant, my social anxiety was improving, I joined the creative writing club and the men's ultimate frisbee club at my college, and I had made friends at both those clubs. I was actually good at a sport for the first time in my life, and people seemed to like me, and I had all these thoughts, and I thought, you know, it would be nice if I had all those same things in my life, but was a girl instead. And then just like that, that thought just appeared in my mind and went away, and I just continued on with my day and forgot all about that. Something in my life felt deeply wrong, but I was still failing to identify what it was. When people would refer to me and talk about me, it always felt like they were talking about someone else. I turned 22 that year and invited some people I played frisbee with to my birthday party. I never hung out with these people outside frisbee before, and one guy said, "Shit, you're 22? I thought you were like 19. I don't know why, but that sentence struck an chord with me. I just felt odd about being talked about and being seen as a different age. Like this person he imagined me to be, a 19-year-old, wasn't reality. But it felt like that was just scratching the surface. Like there was something more to that. And at this same party, a girl painted my nails bright blue, and it felt so nice to be able to express some femininity after having some drinks and being a little tipsy. I was having fun on my birthday with my painted nails. And then the next day, I saw my mom, and she saw my nails, and basically was aghast and said, "You're not going out with that on, are you? Who did that?" And I was like, "A girl at my birthday party?" And she was like, "Yeah, you're gonna remove that right now." And she gave me acetone, and I scrubbed off all my nail polish, and that hurt. I still consider my 22nd birthday one of the best days of my life, simply because I was able to express my femininity. It felt good and comfortable that I was able to experience gender euphoria while still being blissfully unaware that I was trans. Shortly after my birthday, I found this subreddit called Egg IRL. I just thought it was kind of a funny place where people posted about wishing they were the opposite gender, and I was like, look at these trans people. They're just having fun. Why do people hate them so much? And I felt drawn to them in some way. I don't know. Just this weird energy around trans people kept coming up for me. Like I remember when my favorite streamer, Northern Lion, posted in his chat, "trans rights." And at the time, again, I did not think I was trans. But when I saw this, I was like, that's so awesome that he posted that. I just felt really happy. I felt really drawn to trans people for some reason, but I didn't know why. And I never questioned that either at the time. I spent more time lurking on trans subreddits, and I learned some things about trans people. And as I learned, I wanted to meet a trans person at a party and drop hints that I knew something, that I knew the term egg, that I knew what clocking was. At the time, I thought I was cis, but I had this fantasy of just meeting a trans person and using terms like clocking and egg and just, I don't know what I wanted. I really don't. but I really wanted to meet a trans person and just share that I knew something. And it was around that same time that I came across Sean's YouTube channel and his videos about transphobia, and it revealed to me how much the whole quote unquote trans debate is just dehumanizing rhetoric towards trans people. Like, there are people who want trans people to suffer and die, and they're monsters for that. I reflected at this time about how most of my experience hearing about trans people is from those who hate them, and I wrote on a piece of paper one night while I was high in my apartment, I want to learn more about the trans experience. Eventually, I did. I found myself on Reddit again, going through threads, after Googling what it's like to be trans and reading about people's experiences being trans and transitioning. I remember thinking, wow, trans people sure are brave to transition despite all the hatred. And I Googled, how do trans people have the bravery to transition? And was surprised to see many people dismissing that, saying they had no option but to transition, saying they weren't brave. And right then I told myself, if I were trans, I would never transition. I wouldn't want to risk losing my friends and family. I wouldn't want society to hate me. I would never transition if I was trans. It would just be easier to continue being a guy, right? And it's funny, I had this thought, and not long after this, I started watching these Omegle fake e-girl videos. And I started watching other videos by these same channels, like how to do a girl voice, how to do your makeup to look like a girl. And I started practicing my girl voice in my car with a random female name, and I would say, "Hi, how are you? I'm good, how are you? Hi, my name's Katie." And I was not thinking I was trans at this point. Somehow, I still did not think I was trans. I was oblivious. But as time went on, my thought of I would never transition if I were trans, as a mere hypothetical, became a reality. The signs kept piling up. My senior year of college, I was gifted after a frisbee tournament a gag gift that was this plaque that read, "Just a girl who decided to go for it." In my head, I was like, oh shit, I am a girl. And I just laughed about it like, whoa, what a funny gift. But inside, I was like, I am a girl, and I should probably just go for it. But like I said, that I would never transition thought I had for so long was there for a reason. And let me tell you, at this time, I probably had just started questioning my gender, but I was still really opposed to the idea of being trans. Like, I would read some stuff online on Reddit and saw people be like, I had all these thoughts, and if you're having these thoughts, sorry to tell you, girl, but you're trans. And I'd be like, what? No, no way. That's crazy. I'm a guy. What? Look, I had really bad social anxiety, and I was finally appearing normal and making friends, and being trans would just throw a whole wrench in that. It seemed so scary, so I kept living as a guy and got more and more depressed and suicidal. And then I decided to learn even more about being trans. I read this book called Yes, You Are Trans Enough, which is a nonfiction memoir by a trans woman. And I was like, holy shit, I relate to everything in this book on so many levels, like preferring to play as women characters in video games, so many things. And I was like, oh my god, I think I'm trans. But I kept living as a guy after that and got more and more depressed once I had this realization that, yeah, I was probably trans. I just saw so much transphobia online and even in person. On the highway to my college, I saw this big banner that said, "No men in women's sports," and said, "Democrat equals demonic." And I was scared and did not want to appear trans, so I delayed transitioning for years when it was all I wanted. I started getting ketamine therapy for my treatment-resistant depression about a year and a half after this, and I have a whole video about that and how it allowed me to finally accept that I was trans, and feel that with such a certainty that I knew transitioning was the right choice for me. I'm now 7 months on HRT, and life feels so much more hopeful. I've come a long way over the years. I think philosophically, we're all going to die one day. We get this one life and that's it. I don't want to live my whole life as someone I'm not, as someone who feels like another person when talked about, like they're talking about me, but the me they're talking about isn't really me. It sucks. I was a nice guy. I was kind. I did my best to be friendly, but I was deeply unhappy. And even when things were going well in my life, I still had a deep sense that everything was wrong. Like, I went through most of my adolescence and early adulthood without having any real friends. I was suicidal every day of my life. And then I finally made some friends, and that was like my main goal in therapy. That's why I'd been so depressed for so long, right? It's because I've been all alone. But my depression never went away. I still had those same suicidal thoughts every day. It's always dragging me. Life felt so wrong. Even as I was getting good grades and had a good part time job and nice friends in my life who cared about me, I was going to the gym a lot and playing frisbee, exercising, doing everything I was supposed to do. Everything still felt so wrong. So, yeah, I said I would never transition, but I'm so glad I changed my mind. I want something more out of life than to feel like I'm simply surviving. I want to experience joy and sadness and have a full life. I don't want to feel like I'm just piloting a robot whose physical form is completely disconnected from my mind. So I am transitioning, and it's scary, but it's already so worth it. I wanted to change for so long, but I had no idea what it was. Well, this is it, and I'm doing it, and I no longer think about killing myself every single day of my life. I actually have hope for the future, and like who I am. I never thought I would get here when I was 16 or 20, and now I'm 25, and I can't believe I no longer want to end my life. That it doesn't feel like inevitable that one day I just won't be able to take it anymore. Now I've made it so far that it's not even on my mind anymore. My 16-year-old self and 20-year-old self never would have imagined that I would make it this far. I'm glad to be alive. I never thought I could say those words and mean it. I was scared to be trans, but I'm so happy that I finally accepted myself for who I am. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening to this. If you want to be along for the journey of my transition and hear more about my experience being trans, please subscribe. I'm so grateful to have you here with me for my journey and to have a place to share what I've kept buried deep inside me for so long is so nice. Stay safe, everyone. I love you all. Don't forget to be kind to yourself. I'll talk to you in the next video. Goodbye.